Well, welcome everyone. This is our inaugural Three Tales Told podcast. Hopefully you'll learn a little bit. I have some stories, a little bit of fun facts from three wise men, I guess you could say. I guess first of all, we have Jason Lavoie out in Calgary, Alberta.
Hello, how's it going, boys?
And we also have Shane Wright all the way in Etonia, Saskatchewan.
And everybody asks, where the hell is that? And you know what? You don't need to know. Just you have my voice, and that's good enough.
It's between nowhere and somewhere.
Somewhere, exactly.
Exactly.
And of course, I'm Sean Slatt. I'm here in Marquis, Saskatchewan, just outside of Moose Jaw. So if you see a big freaking moose, you know where to find me.
Just a couple of prairie boys talking some stories, some history, some facts, and it's going to be a good time. You know, we used to do a music podcast that no one listened to, and now we're doing a history podcast that hopefully some people will listen to.
Or nobody listens to, you know, either way.
Either way, it's good to get together and have some fun. So yeah, I guess I won the random draw to go first, so it's an honor. I want to talk about World War I, and in particular, a story of a warrior, a real hero, named Malunka Savage. Now, she is a badass, a real badass. She actually entered the Balkan War. She's from Serbia. She entered the Balkan War. She actually impersonated her brother to get into the Serbian military. And she shaved her head. She got in there. This is 1912. And she went right in the front lines. She was kicking ass. And she even got promoted to like a corporal and got awarded a medal for her valor. And in that, she actually won battles. She got hit with a grenade shrapnel in the chest. All bets were off. They put her on the stretcher. They opened her shirt up. Yeah, you know what? She got outed. We got our woman in the battlefield. So the general didn't really know what to do. The jig was up. So the commander kind of had to think, okay, what am I going to do here? I got this woman. She's on the battlefield, but she's a hell of a damn soldier. He had to say, I'm going to think about it. I might send you back to the medic staff. Usually women, of course, they did more like hospitality type stuff, right? So she's like, nah, I need a gun. I'm here. I'm a fighter. I'm a warrior. I want to fight for my country. She actually stood at attention outside his tent as he made his decision for like an hour. And he's like, okay, I got myself a stubborn but a hell of a warrior. We'll let you in. So she continues to fight in the Balkan Wars. She then goes back. She wants to go back to her farm near Belgrade in Serbia, of course. You guys know what happened. You know, Franz Ferdinand, you know the whole story. World War I starts, right? So she starts in World War I. Now, some of the stories of her World War I exploits are part of Legendary. Now, you guys remember Wonder Woman, the movie Wonder Woman?
I never seen it, but I know about it, and I know the premise behind it.
Sean, have you seen it at all?
Okay. I'm in the same boat as Shane. I've heard about it, but I haven't actually seen it.
Okay. Well, it's not a terrible movie. Anyways, there's like a scene where, like, she's in World War I, and like she's like Wonder Woman, so it's kind of like hilarious. But she goes into like no man's land, and she like single-handedly takes out the Germans. Well, you didn't need to make a fictional movie out of that. This woman did that. She went in apparently behind enemy lines in World War I in no man's land, and she apparently got 23 Bulgarian soldiers to surrender. In her time in World War I, the Serbian army was getting beat down pretty bad. They actually merged in with France. It became like a Serbian branch of the French army. She met a general there. He kind of was, again, you know, this is the World War I, and this is like women treated back then. It's like, come on, you know, right? So he basically was dismissive of her, and he basically said, I got a bottle of cognac, it's 40 meters away. Let's see you hit that. One shot, boom, done. She did it. She got the whole case of cognac. She shared it with everyone, and she became a star. She was injured about 9 times. She was there for the whole war. I can name the countless battles, but here are some of her awards. She was given the French Legion of Honor twice. She was given the Russian Cross of St. George. She was given the British Medal of the Order of St. Michael. And she's the only woman in World War I to get the very prestigious French Croix de Guerre. So, yeah, we're talking about a real badass. Now, the story doesn't end there. The war's over. She goes back to Belgrade. Now, they wanted her to live in Paris and get a pension. She's like, no, I fought for my country, Serbia. I'm going to live in Serbia. So she goes in Belgrade. World War II happens. She actually, I don't know too much about how she got in there, but she got into a concentration camp. Now, she was there for 10 months, and the Germans didn't know who she was. She's, an older woman at this point. Maybe not that old, but, she's an older woman. A German general actually noticed her page. He said, call this woman up immediately. He goes into her office. He goes, I can't believe I'm meeting the famous Malunka Savage. He shook her hand, saluted her, and released her immediately. Just because of how much of a warrior she was. He was her legendary status. And that's basically the story of Malunka Savage. Just a little bit after that, she kind of went back. She did some janitorial work after the war. She lived in relative obscurity and poverty. It wasn't until there was some sort of memorial thing for Serbian war people. She showed up there, all these, old generals and old, warriors with their medals. She basically, laid down all these medals and said, here, boys, check this out. And she basically became famous later in life, much as an older age, telling her story. So it's good that she was given that. But I feel like this is a woman who does not get enough credit. I really wanted to take this opportunity to talk about her. And I'm glad to do that, guys. So, yeah, I'll just open the floor up if you guys want to talk about it all. If you have any questions for me, I can try to give you as much info as I can.
My only question, I guess, is because it's kind of like you talk about the shrapnel getting hit in her chest, and that reminded me a little bit of like Iron Man, but then she's this woman who's going around doing all of these things during wartime on the battlefield, kind of like Mulan. And
yeah.
It was, I guess when I was a little kid and I watched Mulan, I wasn't able to really suspend my disbelief, and the whole time I was wondering, it's got to be obvious to some of these guys that she's a woman. Hasn't anyone clued in? And kind of as you were going through your story, I'm sure there were people that did, her companions and peers that she was fighting beside, I'm sure must have known. But
yeah, you'd think with the voice and everything, I've seen pictures of her. I'm not saying she's manly looking, but she did look maybe boyish if she shaved her head, right? But the voice would be the giveaway. But they had young guys fighting then, right? So they could have just thought she was like a maybe barely pubescent young man, or just a guy whose voice didn't break. I really don't know. There's a lot of lore with her. And, again, some of this, a lot of war stories, maybe not of all of it is true, but no one can take away all her medals and honors that she's been given. But yeah, you'd think that maybe somehow there would be someone cluing in. And really, the story is that her injury basically ousted her as a woman.
I was just going to take it one step further and say, at some point there may have been something that just kind of looked the other way and said, damn good soldier.
And that's kind of what happened, right? It was the guy had to hum and haw about it, and he's like, yeah, this woman's a badass, we got to keep her. And she was allowed to enlist in World War I, and they allowed her in there, and she's one of the few women soldiers who fought in the front lines. So yeah, that's my story. That's my tale for today.
All right, so I'm going to take you back to 1980, in the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. And of course, we're talking about the Miracle on Ice, U.S. versus the Soviets. A lot of people thought that was actually the gold medal game. Actually, it was not. It was the first game in the medal rounds. The U.S. actually won the gold medal 2 days later against Finland. A lot of people remember Al Michaels and his famous call, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the only reason he called the game was because he was the only commentator in CBS's lineup that had any experience calling a hockey game. Now, how much experience, you ask? He had 1 game experience. In 1972, he called the Soviet versus Czechoslovakia game on NBC. The only reason he called that game was because he grew up as a hockey fan and no one else would do it.
Wow.
So now going even further, Michaels had no idea how big actually that moment really was because he had to call the Finland-Sweden game right after that. So he had no idea until he actually left the arena and he started seeing flags waving. And then he finally got to his hotel. And as the story goes, someone said, "Wow, that was incredible what you said." And he just thought to himself, "What did I say?"
Wow. No kidding.
So that's just kind of a few interesting facts about Al Michaels and how he kind of ended up in that role with the Miracle on Ice.
Wow, I didn't know. I honestly thought that was the gold medal game, so I'm already learning something. Wow.
It wasn't, and to tell the truth too, everyone kind of remembers the crowd cheering and going wild. When actually in the second period, it was dead silent. The Soviets actually dominated the second period.
So it was a medal round game. Now, how much of an upset were they? Do you know that, Sean?
It was a pretty big upset. I mean, the Soviets had won, I think, 5 or 6 straight gold medals heading into that. And, I mean,
wow.
Yeah, like they were a dominant team. You have to understand they were from communist USSR at that point. So pretty much you're looking at pro players more or less against college kids.
Okay, and this was non-professional athletes, right?
That's right, because this was the Olympics before the pros were allowed. Now, of course, the Soviets had their ways around it because of the Red Army. Technically, their players were soldiers.
And this wasn't this wasn't the first time a major game between the USSR and the States took place, right? Like wasn't there that famous one? I think it was either in the 60s or 70s.
There might have been.
The 72 Summit Series versus Canada.
72 Summit Series against Canada, yeah.
Yeah, that was also...
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. Sorry.
Yeah, that was Canada for sure, and that was evenly matched, would you say, Sean?
Yeah, that's kind of a story in and of itself. I mean, at that point, no one knew exactly how good the Soviets were, and when they came up against that was NHL players they were up against, and it was an eye-opener for those guys. Like, holy crap, like they can play.
I mean, the Soviets, really good point about the Soviet Union. You're talking about a serious, like, way more countries, because I think it was 93 when the whole Soviet Union broke up. Could be 91, actually. But anyways, I don't need to go into such detail. But you're talking about, like, Belarus and Lithuania and Estonia and like teams that field a competitive team now. Like Belarus has a somewhat competitive team in junior and senior hockey, right, Sean?
Somewhat. It depends on the year. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
But think about it, that in 80, that Belarus is part of Russia. So you have all their talent. You have every country around Russia's talent with them, right? So that would be a hell of a powerhouse.
Well, that's the thing. There's a really great documentary. I believe it's called Red Army. They talked to Vyacheslav Fedosov during his time with the Red Army, and that's the thing is like this was a point of national pride for them because they were in the communist Soviet Union. Is they wanted the best. They trained nonstop. When they lost, like they were pretty much, it was almost like a concentration camp. Like they were locked in and they trained 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was insane.
You mentioned it was a source of national pride, and I don't want to make this about good guys and bad guys, but I think we had just gotten out of the Cold War around that time. It might have been a little later. Do you think that there was any sort of like maybe leftover animosity on either side towards the other?
No, actually, that's a good point. We're just coming out of the Cold War, and that kind of heightened the intensity of that game. It was the Cold War on ice, if you will.
Wow. Sean, can you speak to the reaction of the Soviets? I think of, I don't want to say the Olympics, but there was a famous basketball where the USSR defeated the USA in one of the most ridiculous games ever. And the USA team were so distraught and kind of PO'd that they actually didn't accept their medals, and their medals are still waiting to be claimed, believe it or not, the silver medals. Did the Russian team accept their medals? I understand that maybe they did something that they didn't accept them, or they did.
I'm not 100% sure about Lake Placid. I know there was one instance where they lost a game and they did accept their medals, but there was a lot of fear involved because when they played that game and had to head back to Russia or the Soviet Union, they don't know what they're coming back to because you lost, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you hear about like South American soccer teams, and I could do a whole story. I might do a whole story on the 2011 Cricket World Cup and how it was rigged for India to win because how much the fans would burn down players' homes, if they lost. It's just so fanatical.
Wow,
that might be a story in itself, you guys. I'm gonna put that in my back pocket.
No, and that's the scary thing about the Soviets is it wasn't the fans, it was the government.
Yeah.
That might burn down your home or arrest you.
Wow, yeah, good point. I mean, we don't need to go into Russia, Russian government, but even to this day, I mean, come on, Oh man, yeah, no, that's a really cool story about Al Michaels there. Honestly, first of all, I'm completely not educated on. I thought it was Marv Albert because I know he used to call, hockey kick save and a beauty, and was his famous line. But I thought so. Al Michaels, yeah, he does football now, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, he does like NFL stuff, so that's his main thing. Anyways, cool story.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, and I probably know even less about it than Jason, because you guys know me. I'm not a sports fan at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good story. I think it touched on not just the sport and the Olympics itself, but a point in time where, like I said, we had just gotten out of the Cold War, and now we have this hockey game, where we're going up against the Red Menace on ice.
Very cool, Sean.
Thanks, you guys, and glad you enjoyed the story.
So the person that I want to talk about is a figure from Japanese history that nobody really knows anything about. And I'll get into that, but a lot of it, like trying to research this guy was really hard because the internet, other than Wikipedia, has almost no information on him. And even Wikipedia has like a paragraph. So yeah, so this guy's name was Tokugawa Tadanaga, And he was born into the Tokugawa family. And for any of you guys that don't know, Tokugawa Ieyasu was one of the three unifiers of Japan. He ended the Warring States period and became shogun and ushered Japan into what is known as the Edo period, or the kind of like a time of peace. Tokugawa Tadanaga was his grandson and was the younger brother to a man named Ieyamitsu. And Ieyamitsu had this kind of bitter jealousy over his younger brother, apparently because Tadanaga received a lot of affection from his parents, particularly from his mother, and a lot of favoritism. So it seems kind of petty and a little strange and a little stupid, but Ieyamitsu really had it in for his younger brother from an early age. And when Ieyamitsu inherited the title of shogun from his father, Tadanaga was made a daimyo to work kind of underneath him as his brother's vassal. And so where it gets a little crazy and a little hearsay is just 2 years after becoming the daimyo, Tadanaga would lay his hands on a young female retainer and apparently strangle her to death. And his reasons for doing this, along with other acts of alleged violence, are not known. The result was he was placed under house arrest, and his brother accused him of insanity, stripped him of his political power, took his possessions, and a few years later, in 1633, Tadanaga made his brother appear before a magistrate and basically said, you have dishonored our family for, and I'm quoting, actions unbecoming of a lord, and you must commit seppuku.
Which you should explain what that is to the people who don't know.
Seppuku is basically ritual suicide. And I'm not going to go into how you do it. It's pretty grisly. But it was something that people did in medieval Japan to preserve honor. And the circumstances of which one would commit seppuku were it was varied, really. The number one reason usually was an act of cowardice. Like if you ran away from off of the battlefield and they found you, they would order you to commit seppuku. Or if your side lost and you became a prisoner to the other side, to preserve your honor, you would have to commit seppuku. The other strange thing is, I had mentioned before that he had done other sort of acts of cruelty and sadism, but I can't find any examples of what any of that might have been. So I kind of came to the conclusion that Tadanaga's alleged insanity, his violent acts, and even possibly the murder of one of his own retainers was really just part of a larger conspiracy contrived by his older brother in order to eliminate him out of jealousy and spite, basically.
Is that kind of the general consensus, what you found, what people say about him? Or is this just your own conclusion?
This is kind of a little bit of both. I went and researched this guy's name in various forums on the internet as well. And there are people who share this. And then there are other people who think he really was insane and he really did kill a retainer. But the actions that were not mentioned were perhaps just so violent and grisly that they were erased in order to preserve the honor of this family.
Well, it's interesting. I kind of bring that up, that conspiracy theory, Shane, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but especially in kind of that medieval Japan, power was everything. So if you could eliminate, even if it was your own brother, if you could eliminate someone who could threaten your power, you did it.
That is true. And even though Ieyamitsu was the older brother, and therefore he would inherit the title of shogun, there's nothing to say that Tadanaga as a daimyo could have done something to eliminate his older brother and seize power as shogun, because he would have been next in line, right?
When you say stuff like daimyo, are you talking about like a ruler?
Daimyos were, in a sense, rulers. They were,
Okay.
if you think of like a president's cabinet or like a prime minister's cabinet,
Mm-hmm.
a daimyo would be similar to that, a member of a cabinet. They worked under the shogun, and the shogun worked under the emperor. So the order was emperor, shogun, and then the shogun's daimyo. And then under the daimyo were like high ranking generals and samurai warriors.
And just the conclusion, did he actually commit seppuku then?
Yes, he did.
Oh boy. Ugh.
Another interesting bit of information that I found, because I kind of asked myself a couple of questions about it, like if he hadn't been hated by his older brother, and assuming what he did actually did happen, would any of it have been overlooked by his family? And if so, would they have allowed him to continue being a daimyo?
You know, there is no retiring, maybe, or quitting, I suppose.
No.
Right? It's basically it's your life duty.
I
don't know.
It would be kind of a dishonor to walk away.
Yes.
I don't know if it would, though.
Oh,
I don't know if that would classify as seppuku or not.
Of seppuku, but it would be a dishonor, I would think. Sean
very
said.
well could have been, yeah.
Yeah.
But given the mentality of these people, it would surprise me if any of them actually ever did walk away from this life of you're given everything basically, and if you're born into it and you don't know better, why would you walk away?
The whole if I knew what I knew then, if I knew now. Really cool. Sounds like a really fascinating. You deep dive there, Shane. I've never heard of that man. So nice little snippet of Japanese history. We really did cover the whole. Yeah, we covered quite a varying. I think that's the whole essence of the podcast, right?
Yeah, it's to kind of just give out these little tidbits and kind of not just to just share something new with not just the two of you guys, but to our audience as well, right?
Yeah, just
we're hitting a wide variety of topics. Like I had sports, Jason's talking a little bit of war history. Shane's got medieval Japan.
Yeah, so I think we covered a lot of stuff here, guys. Like, good first episode.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun getting together with you guys again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a really long while.
No, a lot of fun. He has a lot of fun. Hopefully, we learned a little bit from each other.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys bring next time. So, let's just end it there, guys. So this is Jason. I'm signing off here.
This is Shane. See you later.
And Sean signing off. See you later.